Good morning to everybody. I'm recording this just after the siren went off, reminding us of the Kedoshim, all the holy soldiers who gave up their lives for Kiddush Hashem. And I'd like to thank Philip Keller for sponsoring the short Dvar Torah. It's in the memory of her mother, Zlotya Batya Bat Aaron Yitzhak Alevi Aliyah Shalom, and that her neshama should have a Aliyah Began Eden, amongst other things in the zchut of the Divrei Torah, which have been sponsored. There's a very famous story about Rav Kahneman, Zechat Tzadik Livracha. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Ponevezh, the founding Rosh Yeshiva of Ponevezh, who was asked, how does he look at Medinat Yisrael? Does he look at the state of Israel as a cup half full or as half empty? And we all know that Medinat Yisrael is full of problems, and that's what they asked him. How does he look on Yom Ha'atzmaut at the Medina? So Rav Kahneman was reported to have said, I don't look whether the cup is half empty or half full. I'm just happy that there is a cup. That was his answer. I think many of the Gedolim who lived at that time, at the time of the founding of the state, that's exactly how they felt. In other words, that they weren't looking now at this way or that way, but the mere reality that we have a Medina of ourselves. We have a Medina, no matter how way you look at it, but we are independent to some degree. We are running our own Medina. That is how he gives thanks. I'm happy that there is a cup. Because those type of people, only 78, 70, 80 odd years ago, they experienced on their flesh what does it mean to run from one place to another place and not to be able to enter, not to be given permission to come and to live or to immigrate in other places, because there was no other state or no other country which wanted to accept them. And here we have Medinat Yisrael. This mashal, or this statement of Rav Kahneman, I think that it's not just like something which is a very brilliant, witty type of answer that he's giving. I think that this is an echo of what the Rambam says concerning the laws of Chanukah. The Rambam famously in his laws, the first halakha of Chanukah, why do we celebrate Chanukah? So the Rambam says that we celebrate it for two reasons. That's what he says. The one reason is obviously, everyone knows of that reason, is the miracle that happened concerning the Pach HaShemen. But the Rambam says that's not the reason. That's not maybe even the main reason. The main reason the main reason the Rambam says is that because the Chashmonaim returned Jewish sovereignty to the Jewish people for just over 200 years. And it's a remarkable Rambam, this Rambam. This Rambam, first of all, of course, we're not dealing with the laws of Chanukah now and the Chag of Chanukah, but this Rambam is always used in order to explain why we celebrate Chanukah for 8 days, where in fact the miracle of the oil was only for 7 days. And that's what they answer. The 7 days we commemorate the miracle of the Pach HaShemen. And the first day we commemorate the fact that the Jewish people had sovereignty returned to them by the heroic Chashmonaim. And Rav Shapira, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, the famous Rav Abram Shapira, the Rosh Yeshiva of Merkaz Arab, he always used to say at times when there were very trying times in Eretz Yisrael, especially after the cursed Oslo Accords and after Gush Katif, etc., there were many, many trying times where people's allegiance to Medinat Yisrael came into question. And Rav Shapira always used to say, who are we saying Hallel for on Yom Ha'atzmaut? We're saying Yom Hallel on Yom Ha'atzmaut because we've got a Medina. We're not saying it for the government. Governments come and go. And he used to quote always this Rambam. When we look at the history of the Hashmonaim, that period of 200 years of Jewish rule during the Second Commonwealth, what were the leaders like? So the first part, there were leaders, good leaders of Shimon from the house of Hashmonaim, and afterwards, who were the leaders? The leaders were corrupt, terrible leaders who were bought out and showed their allegiance to the Romans. And yet, the Rambam, one can argue whatever one wants, but we're dealing with the Rambam. And the Rambam says quite clearly that even though we had those type of leaders, those type of governments, we say Hallel on Chanukah and we celebrate Chanukah because we had a Medina, we had a state run by Jewish people. And that's what Rav Kahneman says. I'm not getting into now that the cup half full or half empty. I'm happy that there's a cup. And now it's up to us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a cup. Now it's up to us to fill that cup with the proper content. And that is our great celebration of Yom Ha'atzmaut. And while we look at it as mamash, as like a form of geulah, a form of redemption, which we now have to add on the content to that redemption, but the cup in itself, as the Rambam said, and Rav Kahneman, that itself is a redemption. And I'd like to end off with a famous comment of Rav Kook, that Rav Kook said, when we look at the Torah, and the Torah uses the word redemption, it says the word geulah. Where does it mention it? It's in the full. It's full in the book of Vayikra, the end of Baharim Bechokotai, and also in Rod, also in Parshat Kiteitzei. But the word geulah, amongst other things, is used in the context of Yivum. If you had a woman, and she was married, and her husband died without children, tragically, and then it's incumbent upon the brother-in-law, right, to go and to marry his sister-in-law and to rebuild the house. And the Torah calls that geulah, it calls it redemption. Why does it call it redemption? Usually we understand redemption as being something in which there is progress. We understand pidyon as being also redeemed, and then geulah as something, a redemption in which there is progress. And yet the Torah calls restoring a situation more or less to what it was beforehand. That is also called geulah in and of itself. There's like levels of geulah, but that's called geulah. And so the widow who now lost her husband, right, and now the brother-in-law, who's an extension of that family, now reestablishes that marriage. That's called geulah. There isn't like an extra involvement, but just to restore in some way, that is called geulah. To restore the cup, to restore the government, as the Rambam says, that is called already geulah. So for Medinat Yisrael, when we are celebrating 77 years of that, we now, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us the cup back. Right now, Kadosh Baruch Hu help us to mataher us and to put the true content of Medinat Yisrael into that cup. Chag Atzmaut Sameach.